Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cricket Corner podcast with me, Vatsal Vora, as we review the second Ashes Test match between England and Australia, coming to you from Lords. On paper, one would see that Australians have recorded a 43-run victory over England and have taken a 2-0 lead in the Ashes series, but things could have been so much different thanks to none other than Ben Stokes. The England captain scored a mesmerizing 155 on the final day of the second test match, and it felt like this is Headingley Part 2. This is 2019 Headingley Part 2, and Steve Smith will once again defeat the Australians with the help of the tail and get England over the line and secure a victory which in some regards would have been so difficult, but things didn't turn out that way. 155 of 214 deliveries, 9 fours, 9 sixes. He just took the game to the Australians. It's like he is the big game player in a regards. Like, the bigger the occasion, the bigger the Ben Stokes innings is, the more he enjoys those big occasions. He's not let down by the pressure which these big occasions bring, and it was quite evident from the way he batted today. He knew that he's the only one out there. He is the likes of Stuart Broad with him, with Ollie Robinson, Josh Tongue, and James Anderson coming. But he didn't just stay there and block deliveries here and there. He went for those ginormous sixes which he's known for. And I'm losing words here because that's the kind of innings Ben Stokes has played today. Yes, on paper, Australians have won the test match by 43 runs, and credit to them. They have taken a 2-0 lead in the Ashes series, but it's the way that Ben Stokes plays and has played today has just captured the imagination of the Australians and the English and all the people at Lords, and that's the one major point I really want to talk about here, and that is Ben Stokes. Prior to the start of day 5, England were 114 for 4, I guess, with Ben Duckett and Ben Stokes at the wicket. They had already lost Crawley, Ollie Pope, Joe Root, and Harry Brook towards the latter stages of day 4. So many would have thought that, well, it's only a matter of time before the Australians wipe out the remaining batting of England and secure yet another victory in the Ashes. Similar situation was there in front of the Indians in the World Test Championship final against the Australians, where they needed a 250 odd runs on the final day, but then Australia just swooped in, took some wickets, and completely knocked India out of the park. And many would have expected the same thing to happen with England against Australia, but that didn't happen. And prior to the start of day 5, when England were already down and out, it seemed like they were. But so prior to the start of the game, I had jotted down some points on my phone regarding what things I want to cover in this podcast, and I had the couple of umpiring decisions which I wanted to talk about, short pitch bowling, is baseball dead or not. Those were the kind of points which were on top of my list. But then when Ben Stokes started to hit those runs after the Johnny Bairstow wicket, and trust me, we are going to talk a lot about that Johnny Bairstow wicket towards the end of this podcast, but as soon as Bairstow was dismissed, Ben Stokes just changed gears. Now, someone in the commentary box, I think it was Michael Atherton, who said in the commentary box that there are very few players in world cricket who can change gears as dramatically as Ben Stokes. Now, there are certain players who can change gears, don't get me wrong. They can go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. But someone like Ben Stokes, like Michael Atherton rightly said, he has the capability of going from the first gear directly to the 5th gear, and that's what he did. Like, when Johnny Bairstow was dismissed, I think in a couple of overs after that, he took the attack to the Australians. There was this one over from, I think it was Cameron Green, if I'm not wrong, where he pulled out as many as 23 runs in that over. There were 3 sixes in that particular over as well. Yeah, one of them was a dropped catch by Mitchell Starc, who carried the ball over the boundary line, and I guess that was the over which kind of felt like the coming of Ben Stokes. He then took the attack to the Australians. As I said, he was battering Josh Hazlewood all around the ground, with Josh Hazlewood, Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc and Cameron Green to an extent bowling those short stuff which were quite productive in the first innings against England, but then again these are the exact kind of deliveries which were going out of the ground, over square leg, over third man for six, over fine leg as well. And yeah, so but Ben Stokes really played well, and I think when you see Ben Stokes out there, you still have some hope. I was chatting to one of my friends during this day 5, and I said, like, if someone had to be dismissed, it was either Ben Duckett and Johnny Bairstow. I think many would agree that if Ben Stokes is still out there in the middle, you still have hope, and that's the kind of play Ben Stokes showed. And it was just amazing to see the way he soaked up the pressure like a sponge, and the way he was batting. Some of these shots may seem reckless, but it was well timed, well thought out shots. There was slogging, but that it was like a organized slogging, if that's a term. I don't know, I've never heard that term, so there you go, a new term here on the Cricket Corner podcast. Organized slogging. That was the kind of innings Ben Stokes played that you come up with new definitions in the world of cricket. But hey, wonderful innings, as I've already said a million times on this podcast now. 155, propelling England to 327, which ultimately was 43 runs short of the target. He was nicely partnered by Ben Duckett scoring 83 of 112 deliveries, 9 boundaries for him as well. He was quite handy with the short stuff which the Australians were bowling at him during the early stages of day 5 and towards the latter stages of day 4 to an extent as well. But it was the short stuff which ultimately was his demise. It was wonderful bowling from Josh Hazlewood, getting a small nick of back to Alex Carey. And we need to talk about Alex Carey as well, because he was quite magnificent behind the stumps throughout this second test match and the Ashes series in general. But yeah, Ben Duckett 83. Then came Johnny Bairstow. He was stumped off Cameron Green for 10. Now that is an interesting sort of dismissal which I want to cover as well, but it was we'll do that afterwards. But for the time being, let's wrap things up on Ben Stokes, because he was just outstanding. And the reason why Ben Stokes is so good is the reason why he is the captain of this squad as well. He is the flag bearer of this aggressive style of play. And don't get me wrong, towards the latter stages of day 4, he was playing at a strike rate of 29-30, because he was kind of hanging in there with Ben Duckett, because England had already lost 4 wickets, and it didn't make sense to go bang 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 when you are 4 wickets down and coming towards the latter stages of day 4. You didn't want to give Australia a sniff, because you already have given them a bit of that towards the end of day 4. But Ben Stokes kind of played a collective innings. Some might say that he was going too aggressive on day 5, but don't forget, he was calm and composed and was playing proper test match knock towards the end of day 4, and that's what makes this innings of 155 of 214 deliveries even more special, is that he has played the innings in 2 separate gears, a proper test match gear and a proper baseball aggressive style of gear as well. But yeah, ultimately 327, 43 runs short. And let's start talking about the normal points which I wanted to cover now, since we have already talked quite a lot on Ben Stokes. And the first point which I wanted to cover is the short ball tactics which the Australian used during the first innings against England. Now, first innings, England were knocked out for 325 after Australia posted 416. But it was the kind of wicket where short ball was the key to success, because it was a greenish pitch during the early stages of the test match on day 1 and towards day 2 as well. But once that greenish tint is gone, it was a flat batting wicket at Lord's, like a typical Lord's wicket. And that's when you see the ball not doing a lot, and that's when you resolve back to short pitch bowling, which completely worked against England, because England were trying to play hard and fast cricket like they have always done over the last year or so. And the way in which the likes of Joe Root, Harry Brook, Ollie Pope were dismissed, it was really, really worrying to see, because they were just giving away their wickets so cheaply that just to play some attacking shots, I think they were so much involved in that kind of cricket that leaving or ducking a delivery wasn't part of their dictionary, and that was the demise of the likes of Pope, Root, and Harry Brook to an extent. So that was quite worrying to see, and many people were complaining where this is the end of baseball. Has baseball found an opponent which you can't play this kind of aggressive cricket against? But then again, that's kind of ingrained in the way England have played cricket, haven't they? And I have been a huge admirer of this attacking style of play that England have been playing under the leadership of Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum. And I was also kind of thinking that, well, is this the way going forward? Because when England were dismissed for 325 in the first innings, it kind of felt like Australia are going to run away with this game. And in the end, yes, it is a 2-0 victory, but it was much, much closer than all of us expected it to be. England posting 325, and when Usman Khawaja, David Warner played the way they played in the second innings, showed that the baseball kind of cricket is not going to work against the Australians, because they were really going along well. But then England started using the same tactics which the Australians had used against them, and that was the way to take wickets in a way. And England kind of did take wickets by bowling short, and they dismissed the likes of Head, Green, Alex Carey, Pat Cummins, and the rest of the tail in that regard. So short ball tactics didn't only work for Australians, it kind of worked for England as well. And but it worked a little too late as far as the English side is concerned, because Australia had already piled up a total of 279 and had posted a target of 371 for England. And once again, it was really, really difficult to see how England were playing in the first innings, because yes, you have restricted the Australians for 416, which is also a big enough total, but then you have to come out and play in a way which obviously backs your strengths, but then you have to be calm and calculated at stuff as well. There was no doubt in my mind you could have ducked out of a few short balls here and there and played a few which you were comfortable with, because there was the likes of Harry Brook and Joe Root are kind of very good with the pull shot, but it doesn't make sense that you keep on playing those kind of shots day in, day out, if you get me wrong. I think if you get me right there, I think it was Michael Vaughan who said it in the commentary box. I don't remember if it was Michael Vaughan or not, and he said that England don't realize when they are on top, and it felt like England were at the top during the early stages of their first innings. They were 188 when they lost Ollie Pope for I guess 42 or 43 odd runs. Yeah, Ollie Pope did score 42. They were 188 for 2 and were looking so good out there. Zach Crawley had already started the innings in some blistering fashion. He scored one of the most beautiful 48 runs you will see. He was in complete control, and he had taken the Australian attack head on, and he scored 5 boundaries along the way. And some of the cover drives, on drives, and the pull shot, the flicks which he hit in those 48 runs was just out of this world. And I texted one of my friends, Joe, if you are listening, shout out to you. I texted Joe and I said, like, Zach Crawley is such a nice person to watch. He's such a watchable player when he's in full swing, and he kind of agreed with me as well. But then again, he was stumped off Nathan Lyon. But then again, there was Ben Duckett out there. He scored 98 in the first innings as well. Ollie Pope 42, Joe Root with 10, and Harry Brook with 50. But they have gotten scores there, they have gotten starts there, but then again, the way in which they were giving their wickets away was kind of worrying seeing as an England fan. But then again, 325 was an okayish total, because you eventually gotta target of 371, which you kind of chased down, all thanks to Ben Stokes again. But yeah, it is what it is in the end, and Australia have won it by 43 runs. But the short ball tactics is something which was really, really interesting to see, and I think it's more to do with the kind of wicket on which they were batting. Like, there was a picture circulating on social media showcasing the field placement of the Australians against England in the first innings, and like everyone were just behind, like the silly point square leg kind of position. Everyone were behind because all they were bowling was short stuff, the likes of Hazelwood, Cummins and Stark, and it kind of worked as far as the Australians are concerned, and here they are with a 2-0 lead in the Ashes series. Let's finally address the elephant in the room. And no, I'm not talking about Ben Stokes. I'm talking about two controversial umpiring decisions which happened in England's second innings. The first one has to do with Ben Duckett and Mitchell Stark. Ben Duckett tried to play an upperish cut towards third man where Mitchell Stark was standing, takes the catch. Then it appears that while sliding, he had the ball in his left hand and he was dragging the ball along on the ground while taking the catch. Now, eventually it was given not out, but when Mitchell Stark looked quite convinced that it is out. But then the third umpire came into the action and was given not out. Now, it's controversial, don't get me wrong. Australians might believe that the third umpire have done them dirty. But then again, I feel like the decision was quite right. I think MCC later tweeted with a screenshot of the rule book stating that the player who takes the catch has to be in control of the ball, has to be in control of the ball throughout his body movement or such, and it appeared that Ben Stokes is not in total control, I guess, because he was still sliding, and sliding doesn't mean that you are in control of that ball. And if you are brushing the turf with the ball, I think the decision was quite right. I feel like third umpire made the right call. It felt like Stark was still not in control of his body and his movement completely. And if there's even a little doubt that the ball has brushed the turf, I guess it's quite right that you give the decision in favor of the batsman. You give them the benefit of doubt, because there was still concern surrounding whether the fingers were underneath the ball whilst Stark was sliding and still being in movement and not being completely stationary. These kind of talks just reminds you of that Shubman Gill wicket against Cameron Green in the World Test Championship final, doesn't it? But hey, again, this time the decision goes against the Australians rather than going in favor of Australians like it did in the World Test Championship final. But yeah, I think that was the kind of decision which could have gone either way. But in the end, looking at the replays and stuff and looking at the official rule books, it kind of makes sense why the third umpire went with the decision of not out, and that did eventually propel Ben Duckett to another 40 odd runs and eventually scoring 83. The second one, which is a lot fresher in my mind because it just happened on day 5, on the day which I'm recording this podcast, and that was the stumping of Cameron Green, of Johnny Bairstow, bowled by Cameron Green, stumped by Alex Carey, and that was just hilarious, wasn't it? I think it was a short ball by Cameron Green. What a surprise, Australian bowling short. That's what they have done throughout this second test match, and I think he bowled it short, and like Johnny Bairstow, surprise, he ducks, which the English batsmen should have done in the first innings. But hey, second innings, they learn things, and Johnny Bairstow ducks, and the ball goes into the hands of Alex Carey. Now, then Johnny Bairstow thinks, well, ball is dead. But Alex Carey was quite smart, and as soon as Johnny Bairstow thought that the ball is dead, he trolled out of his... He went for a walk, basically. He left the crease and he thought like, well, the ball is dead. I might just talk with my partner now. But no, the ball was not dead. And Alex Carey was so smart that he ran him out. He just threw the ball onto the stumps. No fuss about it. He just rolled the ball onto the stumps. Not even threw the ball. He just rolled the ball on the stumps, and he was being dismissed. Now again, this was controversial because England were in a tight position. They had just lost Ben Duckett a few balls, a few overs ago, and they didn't want to lose their star batsman in Johnny Bairstow. The crowd didn't want him to go so early. So obviously there were boos and chants all over the Lord's Stadium. But then again, the third umpire gave Johnny Bairstow out, and I feel like that's another right decision as far as the third umpiring is concerned. And a lot of English fans will not like me saying this, but hey, the ball was not dead, because even before Johnny Bairstow left his crease, I think Alex Carey had already rolled the ball onto the stumps, anticipating that Johnny Bairstow would leave his crease, and surprise, surprise, he did. Now, I think, is it smart from Alex Carey? Is it foolish from Johnny Bairstow? I think it's kind of a definition, like a mixture of both. Now, you can't call a proper professional cricketer foolish, but I think in that particular moment, he had like a moment there where he wasn't aware of his surroundings, and many would have just expected that, well, I've just dug the ball is with the wicket keeper, and he's going to probably give it to Slip or to the captain to shine the ball or do whatever they do, apart from what they do with the sandpaper stuff. Not talking about that here, but yeah, I think Johnny Bairstow would have kind of assumed that that's what's going on behind him, so he just casually walks out of his crease. But then again, it wasn't what he was expecting, and he was given run out. Now, apparently that's not a run out, that's a stumping, because the ball is with the wicket keeper and he has dislodged the stumps in that very moment. So I don't think I've ever seen a stumping of a medium pacer or a fast bowler, and I think this is the first and the last time I'm going to see that, because it usually stumpings only happen when you have a spinner bowling. But hey, this time it's a fast bowler, and the wicket does go in Cameron Green's column. But then again, I guess both of them, the controversial decisions which were made by the umpires were correct, be it Mitchell Stark's ghost catch or Johnny Bairstow being stumped by Alex Carey off Cameron Green. I think both of them were correct. And if you sit down, calm yourself down and have a look, I think you kind of agree that, well, yeah, the ball was not dead, and it felt that it was still in the play and the wicket should stand. Stuart Broad came out once Johnny Bairstow was dismissed, and I think he just had to hang in there. As soon as Johnny Bairstow was dismissed, Ben Stokes just went bang, 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 because I think he scored 46 not out of just 21 deliveries as soon as when Ben Stokes was dismissed, which saw him bring his 100 as well. And that was, I think, a blessing in disguise as far as Ben Stokes is concerned, because as soon as he was dismissed, Johnny Bairstow was dismissed, Ben Stokes decided that, well, I'm the only one remaining here, might as well give it a whack, and he kind of did, and it was just mesmerizing to see. I think when he dismissed, England still needed a good amount of runs, more than like around 200-ish runs to win, but when Ben Stokes was eventually dismissed by Josh Hazlewood, I think one of the attacking shots, he got the leaning edge, and Alex Carey ran towards short square leg and short cover, I guess. Ran to extra cover-ish position and took the catch. I think when Ben Stokes was dismissed, there were just 70-odd runs required, and Josh Tong and Jamie Anderson kind of hung in there towards the end. Josh Tong did score 19-odd runs. He was looking comfortable, may I add, but he was the last one to go. Australia were never in doubt when Ben Stokes dismissed, and Ollie Robinson went quickly after that as well. So Australia were never in any sorts of bother, may I add. And it was magnificent bowling performance towards the end once Stuart Broad was dismissed and Ollie Robinson were dismissed. They kept on bowling short. They knew that short ball would trouble the tail end, and that's how they dismissed in England for 327 and winning the game by 43 runs. A couple of points to talk about, not important enough, but I think they need to be covered, and that is the wicket keeping of Alex Carey. Alex Carey arguably is the best wicket keeper batsman right now in test match cricket, at least. He has been magnificent. I think the way he takes catches, he took a one-handed catch as well. He is quite important with the reviews and stuff as well. And today when Australians were bowling short, he was kind of giving a target to the bowlers where they should bowl, because if they wanted to bowl short and wide, he was kind of, standing a bit on the leg side and not actually in the center of the wicket, giving the bowlers, and target to know where they have to bowl. And if they are lucky and get a nick off the bat or a brush off the glove, that Alex Carey would be in the right place, because he's the one who is standing towards the leg side and being in the perfect position at the perfect time. So credit to Alex Carey. I don't even remember how many dismissals he did throughout the second test match. I can see that there were 4 dismissals in the second innings. 3 of them were catches. One of them was that brilliant stumping, in inverted commas, may I add. And in the first innings, I guess there were a couple as well. Once again, I wanted to talk about the Australian pace attack as well, because they might not get a lot of coverage in this second test match, particularly after what Ben Stokes did to them on day 5. And I wanted to talk about Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood. Mitchell Starc did replace Scott Boland, as I thought they would. And he was just brilliant. 3 wickets in the second innings and 3 wickets in the first innings as well. Yes, he was a tad bit expensive, but he gave them something different. The Australian attack, he gave them something different. Bowling fast and swinging the ball and being a left-hander is something which is quite valuable in a test match, and that is something what he provided, and he did live up to his expectations. 6 wickets in the test match. It was quite brilliant. But we often hear the term that fast bowlers hunt in pairs, and that's kind of true. But for Australians, as far as the Australians are concerned, fast bowlers are hunting in a pack of 3. Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins, Josh Hazlewood have been a wonderful trio, a fast bowling trio, and one of probably world's best in the past 5 or 6 years. And the way the three of them bowled was absolutely mesmerizing to see. Starc picking up 3 wickets, Cummins with 3, and Josh Hazlewood picking up 3 wickets as well in the second innings. And it was right that all 3 of them have the same number of wickets, because it was just brilliant bowling. Josh Hazlewood has just returned from injury. He had an okayish sort of game in the first test match. I think he picked up 3 wickets, just 3 wickets in the first test, 2 in the first innings and 1 in the second innings. But he was just magnificent as this test match got deeper. He picked up 2 wickets in the first innings, and those 2 wickets were quite important as well. He dismissed Ben Duckett for 98. I think it was a catch taken by David Warner at fine leg. One other wicket got from the shorts by bowling the short stuff. He got Ben Duckett for 98 in the first innings and got Johnny Bairstow 16 in the first innings as well. But his 3 wickets in the second innings were arguably the most important 3 wickets any Australian could have picked. He dismissed Ben Duckett, Ben Stokes, and then Stuart Broad. 3 of the best batsmen in the English second innings. Josh Hazlewood got all 3 of them. So once again, credit to the Australian pace attack. Those trio have been excellent. We have seen various other teams having a couple of good fast bowlers. The mind comes back to James Anderson and Stuart Broad for England, Shami Siraj, Bumrah for India, Matt Henry, Trent Bolt, Southey, Neil Wagner, Kyle Jamieson for New Zealand, Rabada, Ngidi, Nokia, Jansen for South Africa, Shannon Gabriel and Kemar Roach for West Indies. But I think none of them can compete with Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood. I think these 3 have cemented their place in this third test match, and I don't see them being replaced anytime soon if fit. Final point before we wrap things up here on this Cricket Corner podcast review episode. And I want to talk briefly about James Anderson. He looked out of his depth, didn't he? I think the body language was kind of down and negative. He wasn't up there. He wasn't enjoying the game, may I add. There were a couple of drop catches as well. He just picked up 3 wickets in this Ashes series and he's bowled like 70 odd overs. And things are not looking good if you are a James Anderson fan. Don't get me wrong. He is arguably world's greatest fast bowler of all time. But then again, I think his place in the starting 11 is in jeopardy with the likes of Chris Wokes and Mark Wood waiting in the wings. But that would, again, time will tell who replaces who. For the time being, congratulations Australia on your 43-run win, 2-0 up in the series. I was kind of concerned that things would and could go south for England and they could find themselves 2-0 down with a lot to do for the latter stages of the Ashes for the remaining 3 test matches. I think the 3rd test match is at Headingley, if I'm not wrong. Let me just have a look. Yes, it is at Headingley, starting on the 6th of July, so 4 days from today. Well, you never know what England are going to do. Will they stick to their attacking style of approach? Will they just play normal, pragmatic cricket? Well, only time can tell. But for the time being, congratulations once again to Australia. At the time of recording, I don't think the man of the match has been awarded, or has it been awarded? Let me just have a look if the man of the match has been given. Yes, it has been given to Steve Smith. 110 in the first innings, 34 in the second innings as well. Wonderful batting from Steve Smith. Completely forgot about his innings, but hey, he was just class in that first innings. 110 of the most beautiful runs you can see someone score. And I think I did tweet when he was batting that there's never a dull moment when Steve Smith is on the wicket, and I think it's quite right. Congratulations Steve Smith for your man of the match award as well. But yeah, for the time being, we will call it a day here, and congratulations once again to Australia. I think I've said this for the 3rd time now, but the things move to Headingley with England needing to win all of the remaining test matches to regain the Ashes from Australia. Australia right now are in a commanding position. 2 test matches under their belt, 3 if you include the World Test Championship final as well. So their tour to the United Kingdom is successful at the halfway stage. 3 played, 3 won, 3 more remaining. Let's see which Australia turn up at Headingley as well. So yeah, that's the review episode for the 2nd test match at Lord's. If you liked what I talked about, make sure you're liking, sharing and subscribing on YouTube. If you like what I said on Spotify, then make sure you are giving me those wonderful 5-star ratings. However, for the time being, this is me, Vatsal Vora, signing off. Ciao for now.